And now, Legal Perspective with Allie Menegakis.
When it comes to the American justice system, few principles are as foundational or as misunderstood as due process. Here to help us better understand this constitutional safeguard is Allie Menegakis, attorney at Clekis law firm. Allie, great to see you again. Thanks for being here with us.
Absolutely.
So I feel more so recently I've been seeing due process in the articles that I read. It's coming up more frequently. What is due process?
You know, due process is the legal principle that the government, if they're going to be restricting your life, liberty, or property, that they have to follow certain rules, okay? And we've talked before about different due process rights, for example. You know, if you are arrested, you have the right to a trial, you have a right to a bond hearing, you have a right to an attorney. All these rights that are delineated in the amendments and in the foundational documents are rights under due process. The due process is just saying that you have a right to all of those things if your life, liberty, or property is jeopardized. Okay. So it comes under, you know, the Fifth Amendment of the United States. That's applying to federal government, and then it's implied through the states through the 14th Amendment.
Okay. Is that common that things are mentioned more than once in the Constitution?
Yeah, there's lots of things that are mentioned more than once in the Constitution and other documents, but generally, you know, the 14th Amendment is the one that we look to when it's applied to those states. So state governments, state police agencies, that's how you have a due process right in South Carolina, for example.
Yeah. Who is protected under due process? Is it just U.S. citizens? Does it apply to everyone?
It is applied to everyone. Okay. Doesn't have to be a U.S. citizen. And, you know, our founding fathers, they do specify in different parts of the Constitution and our amendments when rights are attributed to just citizens, but they specifically said all persons are entitled to due process in the Constitution. That includes, you know, even undocumented immigrants. It includes people with green cards. It includes people that are not U.S. citizens.
Okay, so speaking on the undocumented immigrants, I feel like one of the things I've been seeing having to do a lot with due process is immigration and deportation. So can you speak to kind of what's going on, the issues that are being driven up with due process having to do with what's going on right now in the White House?
Yeah, it's a very interesting time constitutionally in terms of how due process rights are being curtailed or even eliminated in some cases for citizens or non-citizens. And like we talked about, due process is a right that you get even if you're not a U.S. citizen. But what's happening now is we've seen this administration implement this very, very old law, the Enemies Aliens Act of 1798. And that is only supposed to be used in times of declared war. Now, we are not in a state of declared war right now, and it's being used in that case.
Okay, so is that kind of how they're able to get around deporting these people, and they have no judge, they can't, you know, be in front of a jury, it's really no proper process? That is kind of their way to curtail around due process?
Well, it's the grounds that they've been using to do so. I mean, you think of the example, if you've heard of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He was the El Salvadorian man that lived in Maryland. He's 29 years old. He had a wife and children. In March of this year, 2025, he was taken from his home, from his children and his wife, and he was deported to El Salvador. He didn't get a lawyer. He didn't get a hearing or anything. The government stated that he was declared under the Enemy Aliens Act of 1798, but they said that it was an administrative error. So they admitted that it was incorrect, and the courts have held that it shocked the conscience what happened to that person and ordered the administration to bring him back. Now, to this day, they have not done that. And the question is, how often are they going to be able to continue to do that? But constitutionally, under this law, the last time that was used was in World War II. It's only used during declarations of war to intern or detain enemy affiliates.
From a legal perspective, what changes would you like to see for the United States to better follow this due process that we've put into law? It's a centuries-old law. What would you like to see be done?
I'll end on this. You know, authoritarian regimes don't happen overnight. They happen one ignored right at a time. And so one ignored right for someone, even if you don't like them, you don't agree with them, affects all of us.
It does. And having these conversations now are more important than ever. So Allie, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing you again next Tuesday.
Likewise.
We're back after this.
This has been Legal Perspective with Allie Menegakis.